You're welcome back to Morning Express. Now let's open up the second leg of conversations, discussions on the program this morning. Joining us virtually is Jeremiah Olatide, who is the Chief Executive Officer, PetroleumPrice.ng. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for availing yourself for this discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here and happy independence once again, Nigerians.
Thank you. Happy Independence Day anniversary to you as well. Well,
Thank you
let's
so much.
kick off with taking a look at a brief overview of how the oil and gas sector has thrived in the country since inception, from when oil was first discovered in the 70s up until now. As someone who is in the sector and as an expert in this, how do you see the entire scenario? Some people say that the discovery of crude oil in Nigeria has been more of a curse than a blessing for the country since it was discovered. Do you subscribe to this line of thought, or do you have a different opinion about it?
Okay, thank you once again. And for me, we've had a bittersweet experience in the oil and gas industry in the last 65 years. Historically, we the oil and gas industry started sometimes in the 1960s, just before the independence. And we discovered oil few years before independence. And 5 years after independence, that's 1965 to be precise, the first refinery in Nigeria and in West Africa, that's the Port Harcourt refinery, was launched with a 60,000 barrels per day. As at that time, we were the major exporter of refined products to West African countries. And in the 70s, three other refineries came on board. The new Port Harcourt refinery, the Owerri refinery, and the Kaduna refinery came on board in the 1970s. And in the 1970s, we had our boom where we had to join OPEC because of the boom we had in the industry. And unfortunately, when the military took back government, we had a total collapse in the oil and gas industry. Our four refineries, they went on the ground. They were not functioning in the 90s, the 80s, and the 90s. And in the year 2000, we began importation of refined products. The four refineries were not functional, and the then President Olusegun Obasanjo introduced or restructured the subsidy where importers are giving subsidy to import petroleum products. And ever since the year 2000, we've imported heavily. Between 2000 till date, that's 25 years, we've imported refined products 100% until recently, where we had to depend on the Dangote refinery.
Yeah.
That is last year. We had to depend on the Dangote refinery. That's just last year. So we've had a mixed experience relating to the oil and gas industry. But by and large, it's a good one that in the year 2024, we began refining 650,000 barrels per day. That is equivalent to over 100 million liters per day from the Dangote refinery. And sooner or later, we are going to become the net exporter of refined products to African countries and some other countries of the world.
Now, I like the fact that you mentioned Dangote Refinery in your concluding comments, and it's as regards the recent brawl between Dangote Refinery and Pengasyn. We saw what happened between the refinery and Nopeng that threatened a nationwide, fuel scarcity. But of course, it was resolved via the intervention of the DSS. But now we are seeing Pengerson also having its own brawl with the refinery, and even the National Security Advisor in place of Malam Noor Ribado had hinted, wading into the situation. What do you make of this constant scuffle, this constant battle between the
Okay,
refinery and these unions?
okay. For me, I I think Dangote Refinery should be given a big applause by Nigerians because in the last 30 years, between 30 to 50 years, we've not had it well when it comes to refining of petroleum products. So having the largest single train refinery in the world should be a thing of pride to Nigerians and Nigeria as a country. So I understand that different stakeholders have their different interests. For me, it is more of an interest-driven takes from them. It's more of an interest-driven takes because we had paying. So for me, it is more of an interest-driven push from some of those stakeholders in the industry. And we should look at the bigger picture. What's the bigger picture? The bigger picture is availability of petroleum products and drop in petroleum product at the pump, drop in petroleum pump price at the pump. Those are the two major goals that should be the bane of stakeholders in the industry. And one, Dangote has been able to solve the supply glitches. In the past, we've had queues. We bought fuel for 2,500 per liter. But with the launch of Dangote, the supply glitches has been sorted. And the petroleum prices has dropped drastically in the last 1 year. So we need to look at the bigger picture. What's the bigger picture? The bigger picture is supply, uninterrupted supply of petroleum products, and reduction of petroleum prices to something that is affordable by Nigerians. So for me, I am happy that the strike has been called off. Both parties have reached a conclusion. They've reached a conclusion on how to sort things out. But for me, the Dangote refinery should not be interrupted by any stakeholder because this project is a Nigerian project. We've not refined since the 80s. We've not refined, like when I mean refined, we've not refined adequately since the 80s. And if a private entity is taking a lot to make sure that Nigeria refines over 100 million liters daily, I think we all need to support this cause.
Well, these stakeholders in the place of these unions in the oil and gas sector have been accused severally of trying to disrupt the law and order that the Dangote refinery is trying to restore to the sector. In comments this made some yesterday, the Dangote refinery clearly told Pengerson and the Trade Union Congress that they are after check of dues and not workers' welfare. Is this a sentiment you also ascribe to?
Please come again. Please come again,
The
please.
Dangote refinery had told Pengerson and the Trade Union Congress that they are after check-off dues and not necessarily the welfare of oil workers in the country. Now I'm asking, is this a sentiment that you also ascribe to in relation to these unions?
Well, for me, I, I've said it earlier that the Dangote refinery must be allowed to thrive. It is a private entity. I understand the functionality, the importance of unionization in Nigeria. They need to protect the welfare of workers. And at the same time, we also need to understand that this is a private organization that needs to thrive also, that needs to be properly managed in order to drive home efficiency. So for me, my take is still simply put that Dangote refinery should be allowed to thrive.
Hello, Jeremiah. Are you still with us?
Yes, I'm
Oh,
here. I'm here.
all right, fantastic. That's your view about letting the Dangote refinery to thrive. And you made comments that the issue has been resolved between the refinery and Pengasyn. This, I believe, is the news that many Nigerians are hearing for the first time, because there was a lot of fear about the fuel scarcity that would emanate as a result of the strike. And we have already seen a blackout in certain parts of the country due to the strike that was declared by Pengasyn as well. If we continue to have such occurrences with these unions picking a fight with Dangote Refinery, how much will it affect other sectors, especially sectors like the power sector that we have seen now being affected, gravely by this scuffle?
Yeah, for me, at this point of time, we really don't need all of these. There should be a conflict resolution committee that would always come in between issues like this and get it sorted, industrial issues and get it sorted. We cannot continue to go back and forth, keep going on strike actions every now and then. In Lagos, over 50 private depots were shut down between Monday and this morning. I speak with you this morning. Reason being that they are in solidarity of the Pengasyn strike and independent strike, and it has affected the price of petroleum products at the depot, because only Dangote refinery has been functional ever since Monday. He has been the one supplying petroleum products across Nigeria. So all of those glitches are not too good for the economy. And looking at the power sector is also affected with all these strike actions. So for me, there should be this resolution conflict committee that will be set up by the federal government to always look into issues like this before it is escalated. Because for every time there is strike actions, it poses risks and losses to the economy, particularly the oil and gas industry, because the oil and gas industry is a very sensitive industry. For every shutdown in the distribution network of the petroleum sector, it affects other areas and affects prices of commodity in the market. If this strike wasn't called off today and it extended beyond today, I can tell you for free that they will start experiencing queue, because this strike has affected flow of supply of petroleum products from the depot to the retail outlets. And with that flow being disrupted, prices will start going up, because it's just a matter of demand and supply. Supply is being cut short and demand is rising. So I think the federal government really need to step up their game to see how to handle issues like this effectively before it's being escalated.
Well, while marking Nigeria's 65th independence anniversary, and also the 2 years anniversary, which of course has been marked, but in the last 2 years of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, the presidency has released a 12-list milestone achievement of the Tinubu-led administration and in the oil production and energy sector. We saw that the presidency said that there has been an increased crude oil production meeting the OPEC quota, improved power supply, achieving all-time high power generation of 5,801 megawatts in March of 2025, and of course a grid decentralization that is underway. What do you say to all of this indices in the oil production and energy sector, it appears that placing them side by side, one affects the other, much like the scenario I pointed out with the Pengassan strike and the blackout in certain parts of the country. How do you respond to this, Mr. Jeremiah?
Yeah, thank you. Well, for me, we've not really performed excellently well in the oil and gas sector in the last 2 years, though we've moved a bit up when it comes to the production of our crude. And we've moved from 1.1 million barrels per day to 1.6, 1.7 million barrels per day. But if you look at it in a larger context, we are still producing far, far below what we ought to produce. There is this recent report that we've lost over 18 billion naira in the last 5 years from oil theft. That means over 36 million barrels per day is over 36 million barrels is being siphoned through oil theft. So looking at the oil abundance that we have, we are supposed to hit the 2.5 million barrels per day before this year runs out. If the oil theft, if security is being enhanced in the upstream sector. So currently we are progressing, but I think we need to still do more, because if you look at the budget is being benchmarked to $75 per barrel. And we've not had it well this year. We've not had it well this year when it comes to this $75 per barrel. If you look at the Bonny Light only sold above $75 per barrel in just January and February. Between March to August, we traded below $70, $72 per barrel. And that is a loss. And if you look at in terms of quantity, what was benchmarked in terms of quantity, our production is over 2 million barrels per day. And currently, we are still below the target. Though, for OPEC, we are doing very well. Last month, in the month of August, we were able to meet our target of 1.7, 1.8 million barrels per day, OPEC target. But I think there is room for improvement. And coming to the energy sector, coming to the power sector and the oil and gas sector, they are intertwined. They all have variables.
Yeah.
Variables that are linked with each other. Over the last 2 years, we've had reasonable increase in the power supply. And in the oil and gas, we are beginning to see a bit of stability when it comes to supply of petroleum products down to the end users. We now have a relatively stability when it comes to supply, unlike our previous years where we always have the queues when we have festive season. But for now, we have this stability when it comes to supply, and prices are dropping by the day. So for me, I'm going to give it just a 5/10 in the last 2 years. But I feel there is room for improvement. There are a whole lot that needs to be fixed, that needs to be put in perspective in the oil and gas industry and also in the power industry.
Well, in terms of the power industry, the looming power crisis stemming from the Dangote Pengassan feud, which has been resolved now, has led to a cut of about 1,100 megawatts in the country. Now, the federal government is also stating something about a decentralization of the grid, the national grid. Is this going to be a way out, a stable solution to our energy woes in the country as it pertains power? Do you subscribe to this?
Yeah, for me, I subscribe to the decentralization of the grid, because we all need to make sure that the power sector is properly efficient. And because we know the power sector is just like the engine room of every economy, though the federal government promised that, oh, by 2027, there's going to be an interrupted power supply. But what we need to sustain Nigerians, the over 200 million population we have, is over a 50,000 megawatts. But what we have pretty just 5,000 megawatts. So we have a whole lot of work to do. So decentralizing them to making sure that they are efficient, if that will solve the problem, I think I'm fully in support of that.
All right, fantastic. We have just about 5 minutes to wrap up the discussion on the program this morning. Let's still get back to the oil and gas sector and talk about these certain cabals that have been accused severally of disrupting the system. And remember when I opened up, I said that some Nigerians are of the opinion that the discovery of crude in the country has been more of a curse than a blessing for Nigeria. And during the successive administrations in the country, we have seen NNPC move from being NNPC to NNPCL, and there have been certain allegations of cabals in the system controlling things. Dangote Refinery came in to, disrupt the order. And could this have been the reason why we've been seeing these unions stemming up to fight the Dangote Refinery? What is your own general perspective and view of the oil and gas sector and these certain cabals that are lurking in the shadows and are accused of holding the sector to ransom?
Okay, thank you once again. We understand that the oil and gas industry is the engine room, the major source of revenue for the economy and for the country. And because of that, we've had several successive governments not being able to tackle the corruption in the oil and gas industry. The corruption in the oil and gas industry is very deep. Several policies, several bills that have been passed have not been able to ease out the corruption in the oil and gas industry. We had the PIA bill come on board. Still, we still have so many loopholes in the upstream and in the downstream sector. We look at NNPCL. NNPCL was transformed to a limited liability organization. Still, we still have corruption everywhere. Dangote is coming on board. We still have the cabals. And the reason why we have all of these is because the oil and gas industry needs a whole lot of sanitization. Okay. The bad eggs needs to be booted out.
Yeah.
We need the bad eggs to be booted out. And that is why people like us, we are fully in support of Dangote. Dangote is coming at the right time to cleanse a whole lot of mess in the downstream sector. Because we've had the subsidy scam, the importers, they've made a lot of money from importation, and they don't want that to go. They still want to play around, bringing in substandard products and all of that into the country and still taking advantage of Nigerians. But Dangote is saying, no, we have the crude, we have the markets, we are supposed to be refining petroleum products. I am going to take up that responsibility to get up a refinery working. And I think with this move by Dangote, we are going to make a headway. And thank God he is a shrewd businessman. He has said it severally that he has been fighting all his life. That for every businesses he has engaged in, he has really fought to remain relevant. And that he's ready to fight the cabals in the oil and gas industry remain. But for me, I think the refining industry that is coming on board will put to rest all of these cabals, because the cabals basically in the dam sector are the importers, the importation of petroleum products, and those union that still make a whole lot of money from those excesses in the downstream sector. So for me, Dangote refinery is coming to cleanse the sector. And one good thing about Dangote refinery is that it's coming as a pace setter. In the next 5 years, you will see so many private refinery running, because the refining business in Nigeria has been seen like, oh, it cannot work. Nigeria cannot refine. But Dangote is saying, no, we can make it happen. I'm very sure we have the Boy refinery that is coming up later, early next year. We have other refineries that will spring up because of the pace that Dangote has set. So for me, it's a fight to finish. Dangote is in. He is going to make sure that we produce what we consume and become a net exporter of refined petroleum products to African countries.
All right, Mr. Jeremiah Olatide, we must thank you so much. This has been a very in, engaging discussion with us here on Morning Express. And we thank you and wish you the very best of the rest of your day.